now. Baby, when I tell you the tension between Nia Long and Taraji P. Henson didn't just appear out of nowhere, believe me, it's been brewing for years like some slow-cooked drama. You could say it started with ambition, ego, and two Hollywood powerhouses who weren't used to sharing the spotlight. When Nia joined the cast of Empire back in the day, fans were hyped. Two stunning, talented black actresses on one show? It was like a dream matchup. But honey, that dream turned into a full-blown showdown faster than anyone expected. From the moment Nia stepped on set, whispers started. Crew members said the vibe shifted. Some claimed Nia showed up late. Others said Taraji gave her the side-eye every time she walked in the room. And while it might have started with harmless tension, it didn't take long for egos to clash. Reportedly, one playful comment from a male co-star about Nia being on Black people's time set everything off. Nia wasn't laughing, and when Taraji tried to lighten the mood with a joke about her being on her period, it only poured fuel on the fire. That one exchange, baby, was enough to spark years of unspoken beef. See, the thing about Nia is she's always known her worth. She's not the kind of woman who lets people tell her how to look, act, or sound. She's precise about her makeup, her hair, her lighting, everything. That's part of what's kept her iconic. But on a set where Taraji was already the queen bee, that level of self-assurance came off as competition. Suddenly, you had two alpha women in the same space and the crew couldn't handle it. Rumors started flying. Nia was difficult, snobby, hard to work with. You know how Hollywood loves to label confident women when they don't smile on command. It didn't take long before the producers realized they couldn't keep them in the same room. Scenes were shot separately, tension was thick, and soon after, Nia's character mysteriously disappeared from the show. The official story? Creative differences. But fans could see through that PR spin. What really happened was two women refusing to play nice in a system that only had room for one queen. Now, years later, the story took a wild twist that nobody saw coming. Word started spreading that Taraji was getting cozy with none other than Ime Udoka, Nia Long's ex-fiancé and father of her child. Baby, when I say the internet lost its mind, that's an understatement. People were like, of all the men in Hollywood, Taraji, why him? Because this wasn't just some random fling. This was Nia's man. Let's rewind for a second. Nia and Ime were together for over a decade. 13 years, a whole engagement, and a son later, they were practically family, but when news broke that Ime was involved with multiple staff members while coaching the Boston Celtics, everything crumbled. The scandal went public fast, and Nia was humiliated in front of the entire world. She had built her life around this man, and suddenly, everyone had something to say about the relationship. At first, Nia handled it like the graceful woman she is. No public rants, no mess. Insiders say she was even willing to forgive Ime quietly for the sake of her family. But before she could even process the betrayal, she was hit with another blow. Rumors that Taraji, her old co-star turned rival, had stepped into the picture. It was like a bad movie plot playing out in real life. For Nia, it wasn't just about heartbreak, it was about principle. Taraji wasn't just any woman, she was someone who had shared space, screens, and headlines with her. That made it personal. Meanwhile, Taraji didn't seem to think she'd done anything wrong. In her mind, Nia and Ime were done, and happiness doesn't wait for anyone's permission. But baby, when emotions, history, and pride mix together, things never stay simple for long. Taraji's side of the story has always been wrapped in mystery and attitude. People who know her say she's the type of woman who doesn't apologize for living her life on her own terms. And when whispers about her connection with Ime Udoka started making the rounds, Taraji didn't flinch. She laughed it off in interviews, kept posting her usual motivational quotes and red carpet photos, and acted like she didn't hear a thing. But behind that confident smile, insiders claimed she was fully aware of how messy the situation looked. See, Taraji has always been vocal about wanting real love, something solid, something mature. After a few failed relationships and years of putting her career first, she'd reached a point where she was done playing it safe. So when Ime came along, charming, intelligent, and already seasoned in the ups and downs of fame, it made sense to her. People forget that Hollywood's dating pool is small. Everyone knows everyone, and sometimes connections happen in the gray area. To Taraji, it wasn't about disrespecting Nia. It was about finally finding someone who saw her worth outside of her characters and accolades. Now, Nia's fans weren't having it. Social media turned into a battlefield. Every post Taraji made, every photo she liked was analyzed like a crime scene. People started digging up old interviews, pointing out subtle shade, and building timelines like detectives. She waited until Nia's heart was broken to make her move, one user wrote. Others argued that Nia and Ime were done, so technically, Taraji wasn't crossing any line. But in Hollywood, perception is everything, and this story was starting to paint Taraji as the villain. Meanwhile, Nia kept her silence, which only made things louder. Everyone wanted to know what she really thought, and when she finally spoke, it wasn't through a tabloid rant, it was through grace. She talked about healing, self-respect, and protecting her peace. But between the lines, you could feel the sting. This was a woman who had built her life around loyalty, and now she was watching two people she once trusted become the center of gossip together. People close to Nia say she was blindsided not because she wanted Ime back, but because of who he moved on with. Hollywood is big enough for both of them, but the emotional overlap made it sting. Imagine spending years building a family with someone, only to see a longtime industry rival stepping into that space. For Nia, it wasn't betrayal in the romantic sense, it was betrayal in the sisterhood sense, but Taraji didn't see it that way. She felt like she'd earned her peace too. After years of working nonstop, carrying entire franchises, and fighting to be taken seriously, she wanted love without conditions. So she began loving with conditions. She wasn't going to deny herself happiness just to protect someone else's image. And honestly, Ime wasn't exactly innocent in all this. The man had already caused chaos in his career after that Boston Celtics scandal. Getting involved with another high-profile actress so soon after? It was risky, but Ime seemed unfazed. While tabloids ran wild, the real tea was how differently both women handled the situation. Nia leaned into quiet dignity, while Taraji leaned into power. She wasn't backing down, and she wasn't going to let social media shame her into hiding. Hollywood might have tried to pit them against each other, but deep down, both women were doing what they always did, surviving the industry's double standards. Still, even with all that strength, everyone knew this story wasn't finished. Something deeper was bubbling beneath the surface, and it was about to shake things up even more. What really sent shockwaves through the industry wasn't the whisperers or the social media drama, it was how both women chose to rise from the ashes in completely different ways. Nia Long, instead of engaging in a public back and forth, transformed her heartbreak into a statement of power. She started showing up at award shows looking radiant, unbothered, and glowing in that "I know who I am" energy. Every appearance felt intentional, as if she was reclaiming her narrative. She spoke in interviews about self-love, motherhood, and refusing to be defined by any man's mistakes. It wasn't loud, but it was commanding. People saw her not as a victim, but as a woman who had turned pain into presence. Taraji, on the other hand, used her spotlight to make sure people remembered who she was. An icon in her own right, she'd earned every bit of her fame through hard work, not gossip. Her team started pushing her upcoming projects harder, making sure her talent, not her personal life, took center stage. But even then, the internet couldn't stop connecting dots. Fans speculated that certain captions and subtle song lyrics she quoted were aimed at Nia. "You can't stop what God has for me," she once wrote, and people immediately flooded the comments with fire emojis and messy interpretations. Whether she meant it or not, the timing was bold. Ime Udoka, meanwhile, seemed to fade into the background. He wasn't the one carrying the weight of public perception. These two women were. That's the sad truth of Hollywood gossip. When men create the storm, it's usually the women left standing in the rain. And while Taraji tried to stay above the noise, her name was attached to a situation that refused to die down. There were even whispers that some of her industry connections quietly distanced themselves for a bit, not wanting to get caught in the crossfire. For Nia, the focus shifted inward. She reportedly poured her energy into her son and her upcoming film projects. Close friends said she was in therapy, journaling, and taking long breaks away from Los Angeles. There was a piece to her silence, like she'd realized the only way to win was to stop playing the game altogether. That decision earned her even more respect from fans. She wasn't chasing revenge or validation, she was living. Still, Hollywood never forgets a feud. Months later, when both women were invited to the same charity gala, cameras were practically vibrating with anticipation. Everyone was waiting to see if they'd cross paths. And baby, when Nia walked in wearing that silver gown, head held high, and Taraji arrived minutes later in golds, let's just say it was cinematic. No words were exchanged, but the tension was thick enough to slice through. Photographers caught them in the same frame for the first time in years, both looking flawless, both acting like the other didn't exist. That picture alone set the internet on fire. Behind the scenes, though, some insiders claimed the situation was cooling down. Time has a funny way of dulling even the sharpest edges. There were murmurs that both women had privately agreed to let things rest. Maybe they realized that continuing the tension only fed a machine that thrived on tearing women down. Whether they'd ever truly forgive each other, no one knows, but there's mutual respect for the journey each one had to take. Today, when fans talk about Nia and Taraji, it's not just about the drama, it's about two women who refuse to break. Their story became a mirror for how complicated female relationships can be in an industry built on competition and comparison. They might never be friends again, but they both walked away stronger, and sometimes that's the real victory.